I've shared a lot as well with, as I've grown like my yoga community, yoga can look different every day. So it can be this full, intense physical practice on your mat, and you're going for it and you're feeling it and you're just moving intuitively, or you know exactly what you want to do. Other days it's just sitting and breathing. Other days it's just lying down. Other days it's just looking at it. I can't even get on there.
Welcome back to another episode of Inside Your Head. I'm your host, Christel, clinical psychologist and founder of Psych Central South Africa. Today I'm having a chat with Sabrina from Asana Tribe, and I'm really excited for us to talk a bit about yoga, meditation, and mental health, and just how that is something that we can incorporate in our lives. I want to just also take some time to introduce Sabrina and give you guys a bit of background and where she comes from. So I'm going to read her bio that I typed out. It's very neat and lovely. As an artistically creative person, yoga came to Sabrina's life as a way to cope with anxiety and physical health. Her journey was on and off for 10 years before she decided to take a leap forward in 2016 and completed her multi-style yoga teacher training of 200 hours on the small island of Koh Tao in Thailand with Mahi Power Yoga School. She knows what it is like to begin this practice we love so much, working well with beginners, and currently she's obsessed with sleep meditation and sound journeys, yoga Nidra and Nada. Her teachings are filled with a gentle strength, focused guidance, and a vulnerable calm that can be felt in her classes. Humorous, fun, kind, and compassionate, she loves to get everyone relaxed into their practice, whether starting out on this journey or deepening into it, continuously learning and sharing. Forever a student, forever a teacher, forever a yogi. Sabrina, that's such a lovely introduction. And I'm so excited just to hear from you and actually to learn from you.
I'm so excited to be here.
And for you to teach me a bit more about this and to teach everyone that's listening about just this practice. I know that you're so passionate about it, and I can just see like your excitement and the energy that you bring. So let's just start with your journey with yoga. Tell us a bit how that started, where that started.
So do you know, a long time ago there used to be those ones in the videos, like literally the VHS.
Yeah.
I was 15 and my mom had like VHSs of yoga classes, and I would do it in like summer holidays. I would just take out like an old blanket and put it in the TV room and then VHS a yoga class.
Wow.
I attended my first yoga class at Virgin Active in Pretoria. And I had an amazing teacher there who was at that time still able to incorporate the whole lifestyle and the science around yoga. And then from there, like after studying and going to college and then getting into the work life, my journey was a bit on and off. So classes, I was in that mindset of I need to get all this work done. So I put all of that first before myself and going to classes. That's why I say it's like this on and off journey, because over 10 years it was in and out. And then, I had like maybe you would call it a bit of a nervous breakdown. Mm-hmm. In 2016, I just felt a lot of pressure at work. I wasn't necessarily taking care of myself in the right ways. So hence the breakdown, and I was just like, I need to change. And I took all my savings and I was like, I quit my job and I went and I did a training in Thailand, and it was incredible. It was an intensive one for like 4 weeks with the school from India. And then I just started teaching as soon as I came back, and studios that were open to me to bring into their space. Mm. Yeah.
It's so interesting how a lot of times you need to really, I don't want to kind of use the phrase very lightly, but you need to hit rock bottom in a way to really meet yourself and to really like, this is something that I need. It's so, like, one of the things that's really stuck with me when I attended your mini retreat was when you said you need to, is something along the lines of, like, you need to listen to your body when it whispers so that it doesn't have to shout.
Yes.
But I think, and that was so powerful to me, but I think that that's actually in our lives as in general, not just with your body.
Yes.
We often need to be shouting before we actually hear.
Yeah.
This is something that you should be doing, or that you want.
Yeah, it does, like you say, hitting rock bottom, or just, I mean, even those sort of spiritual leaders like Koh Tao and Deepak Chopra, they always speak about how it takes like a hard hit or some deep, almost suffering for you to realize what you need to change, and so that you can start like moving towards your most authentic life and like your most authentic self and meet yourself. Because at that time when you hitting that bottom, you weren't living in alignment with yourself and your values, and I mean those things can change, and you know, you don't realize it because you're, you know, at work or doing certain things that you feel have to be done, or societal pressures of being productive 100% of the time.
But so you were so brave to quit your job, take your savings, like that's things that's really scary to do. What was the journey like in India or in Thailand?
Yeah.
I'm thinking about the India school. What was the journey like for you, and what did it entail?
It was amazing. I was very blessed to have the support of my parents to actually be able to take that leap. Otherwise, I probably would have done maybe something more here at home over like a long period of time. But I was able to do this like intensive, just jump right in. It was my first time also like traveling on my own. So that was quite...
Wow, to Thailand.
To Thailand. I was blessed to have a friend that was staying in Bangkok at the time. So she helped me with like small things on like travel. How do I get to the islands? How do I get from that island to that island? Because Koh Tao is the smallest one. So you go right down to the bottom. And it was intense. I will say the first 2 weeks you're running on adrenaline. There's just like this excitement and you're loving it. And like when it's intensive, it's every day you're practicing yoga, you're sitting in philosophy, anatomy, and then you're having like a lunch break. And then afterwards it's all about adjustments, like how do you adjust certain students, and then supper, and then you have meditation at the end. So it's this full day of from like 6 a.m. to 8 p.m, and then you go home, I had a little outside chalet. It was amazing. And then, and then you start over the next day. And we had, I think, only on Sundays, like, off. So that was really nice. And I would go and, like, spoil myself with a little Thai massage. Because they were so amazingly cheap there on the island. And, but just being on that island, the energy there's also like a lot of retreats that are held there. There's different studios, there's different kinds of activities and things you can do. We even had a snorkeling trip part of the whole training, which was wonderful. And then it was connecting with a whole bunch of people from all different sides of the world. So for me, I don't know how to describe it, but like especially towards like middle and the end of the training, I really felt the most connected to who I was. It was a very powerful feeling. I think I hadn't felt that, and the last time I did, I was maybe about 15, 14 when I first journeyed into it. When I put there artistically, I did art in high school, and I was in art school, and there was no sport. So I always suffered with anxiety my whole life. Since a kid, I was always a little anxious kid. And the only time I ever felt like serene was when I was drawing or painting, because there's deep focus. But I knew I needed to do something for my physical body. So I did enter yoga. At the time, it was just called yoga. We know that there's lots of different schools of yoga, and we have a bigger awareness now with like social media and information age. Then it was just called yoga, so you just go. And I went in with that intention of the physical practice, but I realized afterwards why I was hooked and why I fell in love with it was because it made me feel so calm and serene. I was in the present moment, and the only time I ever had that outside was if I was drawing or painting. But then this was obviously benefiting my physical body as well.
And while you were there for the training, well, let me rather rephrase. How did you take what you got from the training and incorporated that when you got back? Because I can just imagine this whole other world where you're there, this is a daily practice, and I wonder how many people actually do that and not follow through with, like, they go with the intention of, I'm going to get trained so that I can become a yoga teacher or practitioner, but then maybe just actually it becomes an individual journey. Because I wonder what that was like for you, bringing that back and doing it here in a different environment by yourself. Like 4 weeks of training is intense, but it's also very short, actually.
Yeah, it's very short. I do felt like it was a lot packed in. It was a lot to absorb. And I think I obviously only absorbed what I could at that time. So a lot of self-study had to continue when I came back. And it is really hard sometimes to hold space for yourself. So when you're in a yoga class and the teacher's teaching you, he is holding space for you. And they're guiding you through. So you don't even really have to think about what to do next. And you're able to literally be in your body with your breath in that present moment. Whereas when it's now yourself, now you have to think about, okay, what practice do I want to focus on? What do I want to move through? What is my intention here? Is it just breathing? I've shared a lot as well with, as I've grown like my yoga community, yoga can look different every day. So it can be this full, intense physical practice on your mat, and you're going for it and you're feeling it and you're just moving intuitively, or you know exactly what you want to do. Other days it's just sitting and breathing. Other days it's just lying down. Other days it's just looking at it. I can't even get on there. So yeah, bringing it into my life was a difficult one, because you're coming back and then you're off of the island. You're now back in your home environment as well. So you have to be mindful of the people around you or your family. Space-wise was also always a challenge. And then as somebody who's anxious, like my mind will be like, oh no, this bedroom is too small. There's no space for me to do yoga. Then I'll be like, okay, it's fine. We're not going to do yoga. I mean, those are just like excuses. I could have gone to the living room, or I could have gone outside. It took a while for me to find my groove, and I will say it does come in and out as the waves go.
Yeah. But I guess that's what I'm trying to also just have people be aware of, is there's a lot of movement now towards yoga is helpful, yoga and meditation is helpful for your mental health, and that there's all of these health benefits physically, emotionally. But then I think a lot of people practice it once or twice, and then they feel like, well, it wasn't necessarily that big of a difference that it made, or kind of expect that I'm just going to be doing it and it's going to be easy.
Yes.
But it's a everyday showing up, just like therapy in a way.
Yes.
Therapy is not always comfortable. Therapy doesn't always feel like it's working, but it's about continuously showing up. And so, like, I can imagine that it's quite a journey with yourself to commit to and actually continue to practice and educate yourself. Yeah.
Like, and it's okay if you fall out. I myself, I'll admit, like, I fall out of my own personal practice, and then I make my way back in. And I'll remind people about that as well. Like, if that happens, that's okay. Just remember your mat is always there. Like, when you're ready and you go back, then you're back. That's this lifelong journey. That's that lifelong practice. I think sometimes we can also be like our worst enemies, and then we're like really hard on ourselves if we don't commit to that discipline every day. And And it might be something to check into, like, okay, why am I not able to hold space? Why have I fallen out of the practice? What's happening through this wave? Is it my energy? Is it collective? Is it, I think there's a lot of different factors, but I think it's, for me, the most important thing is that it teaches you to be gentle with yourself, because we usually are like our worst critics and really, really hard on ourselves.
That's one of the things that I wanted to ask you is, what's the principles of yoga? And I know that there's obviously many, and there's different kinds of yoga as well. But what is it that's kind of like this sets the foundation for, I want to say the rules. I know that it's not rules, but for lack of a better word.
Yeah, the principles of living and so on.
That people can use.
So, like, even with the training and everything, like yoga, comes from the word like yuj, or Sanskrit word for yuj, which is union, or to unite, or to yoke, which is like to join. And it's this coming together of body, mind, and breath, which then allows you to feel deeply into our presence. So we've heard like Koh Tao and all these guys, they speak a lot about being in the present moment and then feeling that presence. And it awakens that awareness within yourself. So then you become a little bit more in tune to like, okay, I'm feeling like this physically. What is the mental chatter that's going on in my mind? How is my heart feeling? Because they're all connected, right? And then our most powerful tool is our breath. So, like, I know this. When you're anxious, and then when you start to just control the breath and you slow it down, you come back into the present moment. And I know with anxiety, or what I've learned through my journey of anxiety, is it's this lack of control, especially in terms of like the future, and you're sitting in a whole lot of like what ifs. And it's, for me, yoga brought me back to the here and the now. So when we look at that balance, it's that union, and then whatever you're practicing on the mat is for you to take off the mat. So there's yogi BKS Iyengar. So he's from the school Iyengar, who created the school Iyengar. He always spoke about there needs to be, with every yoga posture, a balance between effort and ease. And I feel like that is something that you should also be taking off of the mat in life. There should be this balance between effort and ease. So effort, are you pushing yourself too much? Ease, are you being a bit too lax about things? And then that's where you're checking with your discipline and everything. But I did make a bit of a note here. So there is a saying in Sanskrit called Chitta Vritti Nurada. I don't know if I'm saying that properly, but
we won't know either. So don't share.
And it refers to the calming of the mind through meditative techniques. And basically what it means is, so this is my notes here. Let me just find it. So yoga is the inhibition, nirodha, of the modifications, vritti, of the mind. So in other words, yoga is restraining the mind stuff, the chatter, from taking various forms, vrittis. Whenever the mind is stilled, the seer or the real self is then revealed.
That's beautiful.
No, I love that as well. I had to make that note. So, and then in terms of the principles, yoga is usually based on the 8 limbs of Patanjali. So you get, and it's just sort of a guideline towards essentially enlightenment. And I was having this conversation with my one friend as well, and people speak about reaching enlightenment like it's just going to be this one destination and you're there. And I feel like it's something that can actually, you can reach it all the time.
Yeah.
Right? So I think for me, if I'm looking at enlightenment, I mean, obviously there's monks and stuff that are living that every day. But in the modern world, I'm looking at enlightenment as contentment, bliss, being able to be in that neutral zone. So life can happen and you're okay, you're here. You might fluctuate, but there's always that layer right beneath you, just holding you in contentment, in peace and bliss. So the 8 limbs of Patanjali, especially the first 2, are very important. Yama, which is correct behavior towards others. You have non-violence, truthfulness, not stealing, not wasting energy, and abstaining from greed. There's also Sanskrit words for these as well. And this is in terms of, so yourself and others. So non-violence, how are you harming yourself? How are you harming others? And not just physically with words. So on.
Yeah.
And you're not what's in your mind. Truthfulness, are you being honest with yourself? Are you living authentically? Are you being honest with others? Not stealing, and not just in terms of like physical objects, but energy, time, all those things. Not wasting energy, and then abstaining from greed. And then your niyama, which is the principles of the way you should be living for your own life. So purity, as in being your pure, authentic self, staying with that. Contentment, so that's that, finding that bliss. Spiritual observances, so where are your belief systems? With yoga, people tend to think like yoga itself is a religion.
Yeah.
It's not. It comes from India, so it does come from Hindu, but yoga has been around and embraced by all religions and all different cultures, especially now in the modern world. But for yourself, so your spiritual observances, whether you're agnostic, Christian, or what's the one where you don't believe? Atheist. There we go. So even them, I mean, they have their own way of spiritually observing. It can be just inwards, right? So inner journey. And then self-study, and then devotion. So we come back to that. How do you continue? So the first 2 yamas. And then asana is only number 3. So that's obviously all the postures. And then pranayama is your breathing exercises. That comes 4. 5 is pratyahara. So it's sending your senses inward and exploring that inner universe. Dharana is effortless focused attention. So pratyahara can be thought of as a meditation where you can even focus on one specific object. Like let's say now you're focusing on a burning candle. And then when you're in dharana, you're in effortless meditation. So you're allowing the mind to do its thing, but you are separating yourself from it. And then dhyana is living in that continuous flow. So dhyana is just one step below samadhi, which is then your unity with the oneness, the divinity for each person or nature, or just with yourself, right? So then we know that there's different types of or schools of yoga. Traditionally, it is hatha. Hatha is like the main sort of school, and all the schools sort of derive from that tree of hatha.
I think it's important for people to understand this because, well, not understand, but just be aware, because I think I've always thought of yoga as yoga is yoga.
Yeah.
And then, like, everyone's going to know now that I know nothing about yoga. But then only later I figured out, okay, there's this kind of yoga, and like that's more focused on meditation, or that's more it's so I think it's also important for people to choose when they decide that they want to practice it, to choose what they feel they need at that stage.
Absolutely. So what they want to actually bring into their life, like what practice do they want to engage with. So hatha is where sort of yoga all comes from, and then from there you'll have like Ashtanga Vinyasa, which is power yoga, or known as power yoga, and then they have a set series, so it's sort of the same. You follow the same series and a sequence for every class.
A repetition.
Yeah, and then they have very strict like practices. They practice at sunrise. They don't do any yoga during the full moon or the new moon. They only meditate during those days. That they're quite strict in terms of that series. Very similar to essentially Bikram or hot yoga, as people are calling it now, hot 26, is also, it's the same set series. You go through the same postures. And also it has strict ways of practicing. The temperature has to be a certain way. But then you get all different types now that have arisen as well. Oh, I spoke earlier about Iyengar. So Iyengar is wonderful. Iyengar is based purely on alignment. So they'll use everything from blocks and chairs and straps and walls and everything to get you into the posture, and then you hold and you breathe. And you do each side. So it's not necessarily like a sequence or a flow as Hatha and Vinyasa can become. And then from there, you also have Yin Yoga, which is a bit more, comes from like the Chinese side. So there's an engagement in like meridians and energy centers. And then from there, there's even become restorative yoga. Or not become, but a derivative of Yin, which is even more gentle. So Yin and restorative is very meditative. You're holding postures for a longer period of time. Very similar to Iyengar, you'll use props and things to help you, but it's at a different intensity level. And Iyengar as well, you've got to be practicing this for years and years and years before you can even think about becoming a teacher. Then you get aerial yoga and air yoga, which is...
I see people doing it now, and I'm like, it looks so complex, but it looks so free and just like
it's so amazing. It's a lot of fun, but you do face a lot of fears, which is quite powerful. And I think that's the beautiful thing with yoga as well. Different poses will get you to face certain fears that aren't necessarily on the mat, they're within you. There's a saying where they say the asana that you avoid the most is the one that you need the most. So what you hiding from yourself or that you need. Then there's Budokan, which is like martial arts mixed with yoga. So that's like quite a newly developed school of yoga. I think I'm actually not too sure how old it is, but that's quite wonderful, and it's very slow. So you start off very slow. Also has series that it follows, and then you even get SUP yoga, which is like on the water on those paddle boards.
Oh my word! Really? That sounds intense.
That can be like hatha or vinyasa flows. So flows are you get traditional hatha, which has a very specific way of sequencing, and then you get Ashtanga Vinyasa, which I spoke about, has those series that it follows. Then you'll have some classes that will explain that it's like a hatha flow or a vinyasa flow, or to just call it a yoga flow, and then it's kind of a sequenced flow. The poses go into one another. Instead of like pausing, doing right, pausing, doing left, and so on. That's quite Iyengar and Yin. You do each side, and then you go over to the next pose. I'm trying to think of the other schools.
But so what do you practice mainly?
So with mine, it was that multi-style. And we had hatha, we had traditional hatha. We had Ashtanga Vinyasa, although I wouldn't teach that unless I had the proper full Ashtanga Vinyasa training. We had vinyasa flows. So this is all like very hot yoga. And then we had yin, which is like very cooling. So think about like yin and yang. And then, so even if you look at like hatha, so if you translate hatha from Sanskrit, it is ha meaning sun and ta meaning moon. So then you have the schools coming down from there, like either really hot or really cool. And like the cooler ones are the more meditative, calming ones. And then the obviously the hot ones are built for that physical exertion and connection, deep awareness. Hatha, you can hold poses also for a longer period of time, and then like be able to breathe and just feel. It's also very alignment based as well. Whereas vinyasa, breath follows movement, so it goes a little faster, and that's why it creates that fire. What was the question you asked again?
What kind you practice?
What kind I practice?
That happens to me all the time.
I know, like, wait, where was I going?
I think you also have so much that you have in mind that you want to, like, tell us about.
I know, so all, like, verbal diarrhea, but it's cool. So I practice more like a Hatha Vinyasa flow.
Okay.
I enjoy those where the sequence goes into one another and it builds up, whether it's going towards a peak pose or I'm working towards a peak pose or just flowing.
Do you find it difficult to, like, I guess when you go to a yoga class, as you said earlier, even with the training, there you're just following whatever instruction you're given.
Yeah.
So when this is something that you practice by yourself, how do you decide what you're doing?
So this is a great question, because I'll kind of use it as when I'm preparing my classes for whether it's privates or events or group classes. I'll practice that and I'll see, okay, the sequence works or it doesn't work. So my own personal practice will be a bit more like broken up. It won't be this like one solid class.
It's not this flow that's just happening.
So I'll take a moment to like center myself and like get into, okay, I'm here to like prep for the class, write out all the poses that I want in the flow, and then I'll go, okay, how am I going to sequence this? How am I going to put it together?
Okay.
And then that's where like my personal practice will come in. And then at the end, Shavasana. It's really why a lot of us end up staying with yoga and keep coming back to the practice, is that Shavasana at the end, that relaxation. And teachers will do Shavasana very differently. Some will be completely silent. They just let you lay there in that silence. And some will guide. I like guiding because I also know with myself in terms of how my anxious mind can become. If I'm laying there in stillness, then it can maybe take me off of the mat and out of where all like what I've just connected to.
Yeah.
Whereas if I stay with that guided, it keeps me in that space, and then I can come out and then re-enter the world, as I like to say.
Yeah. And I think that that's one of the things, Sabrina, that I really love about your classes or your I've attended some events where you were like the instructor, is that it is so nice to feel like there's that safe space, but also like a mindfulness about this is what you can get from it. I'm guiding you. Like it's like you're giving every person a gift.
Oh.
It's like a it's not just let's just do this generic thing. Well, that's what it's felt like. That's what my experience has been. It's like this gift of I'm giving you this extra space. Where I'm really mindful about what you're going to be going through. And I think that that's where it helps so much to have a guided meditation. And I think for me, it's been the first time that I really realized that that's actually a part of yoga.
Yeah.
Like and shame not to say that the other people where I've done yoga before is not good, but I think that there it's been much more about the physical.
Yes.
And I wonder if that's what often happens in gyms and places where people go to a yoga class for like, this is something that I need to do as part of my fitness regime or workout plan. Whereas it's so nice for me when it's something that's not just it's just about whether this was such a tough and intense
all about the physical
session,
body.
all about the physical, where it's much more about the emotional or the meditative part as well. So maybe I can go off on a tangent for that. So tell us a bit about the sleep meditation and the sound journeys, because I think that that's also something that's so different.
Yes.
That you incorporate in your practice.
So, I came across the Yoga Nidra when I was teaching at a studio in Midrand. And I joined one of the fellow studio teacher's classes, and she guided at the end, and I went to her and I'm like, what was that? I've never felt so like calm and like at peace at the end of the practice. And she's like, no, it's Yoga Nidra. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I just started diving into Yoga Nidra. And then I went back in 2019 to Thailand to teach yoga and host like a couple of workshops and stuff. And then I joined a friend's workshop, workshop course on sound journey. And she incorporated the Yoga Nidra with the sound journey. So I'm absolutely obsessed with this, and I don't want to take away from it, so I'd rather just read what I've written down for
okay, cool.
the Yoga Nidra and the Yoga Nada or Nada Yoga. Okay, so Yoga Nidra is a form of guided meditation, also known as the yogic sleep or effortless relaxation. It's also known as the waking sleep. The practice draws our attention inwards, and we learn to surf between the states of wakefulness and sleep, where our body finds its natural state of equilibrium, homeostasis. We felt that, like that moment just before you fall asleep at night, your whole body just releases into deep relaxation, and then you pass out.
Yeah.
So Yoga Nidra tries to get you to that point, and then hold that point in awareness. With practice, it becomes a little bit easier, but I will say, even with my own self, when I practice Yoga Nidra, sometimes I'm totally out, and sometimes I'm waving in and out. But let me get back. The breath balances and becomes quiet. Unconscious and conscious aspects of the mind reveal themselves, and we fall into an innate state of deep, blissful awareness. As we rest here, we can turn our attention easily and effortlessly to the very nature of awareness and consciousness. So yoga literally means the yogic sleep. It is an ancient technique where the practitioner enters a deep state of conscious relaxation. So relaxation at its purest form. It is a systematic practice of moving awareness from our external world to the inner world. And then Yoga Nidra is a method of inducing complete physical, mental, and emotional relaxation, which for me is super important. So the term Yoga Nidra is derived from two Sanskrit words, yoga meaning that union, what I spoke about earlier, or one-pointed awareness, and then Nidra means sleep. So during the practice of Yoga Nidra, one appears to be asleep, but the consciousness is functioning on a deeper level of awareness. And in the Yoga Nidra, the state of relaxation is reached by turning inwards away from our outer experiences. And even if you fall completely asleep, your subconscious still working on that level.
That's so, it feels so magical that we have the ability to do that.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Meeting that like super conscious. And then, so Nada Yoga meaning the union through sound. So yoga union, nada is sound. And it is a ancient Indian system, a science of inner transformation through the sound and tone. Nada is based on the premise that the entire cosmos and everything in it, including us humans, consists of sounds, vibrations, or nadas and frequencies. So sound therapy is an ancient form of regeneration. And I started with the Tibetan singing bowls. And there's also the gong, and I've now got my handpan, and you met Gareth at the mini retreat, and he can play the handpan amazingly. One day my journey will get me there.
I can't wait for you to get there, because I'm obsessed with the sound, the sound journey in general.
Yes.
But that handpan, it's just amazing.
It's beautiful. And then we just bring in other sounds, different types of instruments. We have chimes. We love making use of leaves, like natural sounds, rain sticks. It's really wonderful. So these all harmonize and allow for deep relaxation on both sides of the brain, which is very interesting for me. Because while these sounds can hit frequencies and vibrations of brain centers, it also hits centers of the energy centers of the physical body. So it stimulates stress relief on all the levels that I spoke about, mental, emotional, and physical, and the elimination of toxins from the body. So after sound therapy, emotions are calm, the mind is clearer, and the sound vibrations have an effect on the body. Sound healing therapy has been practiced for thousands of years to realign the body's vibration, improve mental health and emotional well-being, and create a deeper inner connection. If you're not sure if you believe in the magical curative powers of music and sound healing therapy, just think about your favorite song, right? Or a musical track and how it immediately works as a mood boost or where it takes you to, right? So the two combined, the Yoga Nidra and the Yoga Nada Yoga, create an immensely powerful guided meditation technique. Each individual's experience will be different, and the more we practice it, as I said before, the easier it will become. But it's just like your yoga practice. So when you get on that mat, for whichever yoga school you're choosing, you're meeting your mind, body, and heart where it is on that day. And you're taking it to where it wants to go without any ego. So we remove the ego, because the ego wants to go, but I can do this and I can push further and further and further and further, and I must.
Yeah.
And that's that like overproductive mindset, right? Whereas when we have that deep awareness of our physical body and our heart and our mind, we can be like, okay, today I'm feeling a little tired, a little sore, my heart maybe a little heavy, the mind doesn't stop. Can I be a bit more gentle? And then we begin to like enter this state. So with yoga nidra nada, sorry, I'm coming back to that. With that practice, you meet it where you are as well, because your experience will be different every time.
I think that's just such a lovely principle of yoga in general. But I think, again, that's something that you really reinforced even in all of the classes that I've joined, is to meet yourself where you're at. And I don't think that people often think about that. Even, and I'm comparing it to therapy all the time, but that's obviously my language that I speak. Even in therapy, it's about not saying, but I must do these things and I must like just open up all of my wounds or cans of worms and just say like, I need to sit with everything all at once. Yeah. It's okay to pace yourself, and it's okay to do what you feel ready for, and it's okay to say today, I actually don't feel ready to talk about this. Yes. Just as it is okay to do that physically. It was so interesting to me because the very first event that you did for us was for the Mother's Day yoga event. Yes. And I just had my baby, and I think like it was 4 weeks after my C-section, and I was like, oh, it's just yoga, I can do this, it's gonna be fine. And then like when I got there, I realized like I can't be actually doing this, and it was much more intense than what I anticipated. But I think it helped me so much that you kind of go, this is not a class for beginners, intermediate, or advanced people. This is a class for whoever. And to really just listen to your body. I think in another class, I might have been like, seriously, Christel, this is like an easy pose. You should be able to do it. But like a downward facing dog, or whatever you call it, was so, like I couldn't keep myself up.
There's some days that it's just so hard. And then on those days, don't do downward facing dog. Do puppy pose. Or just lay on your belly.
Exactly.
You know, I have had some students where they'll come to the class and they'll say that they're not feeling very well, or they're just feeling very low, and I'm like, well, what is the mat calling for you? And they're like, they just need to lay there. I'm like, cool, lay there. Just listen to my voice. Maybe your mind's doing the asana practice.
The work, So do you want to do a bit of an illustration for us about like with your bowls, so that people can just hear some of the things? Do you use this by yourself as well, or is it only for like guided meditations for a class, or do you like in your own practice? Also use it. Okay.
I can sit and get quite lost with the breathing because you're focusing in.
I can imagine.
So as I said, like some of them hit different frequencies of the brain, and then they also hit different there we go already. It hits different frequencies of the bodies. Okay. So this one is the sacral chakra. So it hits into D, which is...
What color chakra is that?
The orange one.
Okay. So it's for people to just reference to if they don't, if they want to have a look.
At the base of your spine, you have your root chakra. Okay. And then sacral chakra is, or Svadhisthana, is right above it. It's orange. Okay. All about creativity and relationships. With yourself, with others. And the sound just carries.
It's beautiful. I'm hoping that it translates in the way that it sounds when we are listening to it now, when other people listen to it and they're not going, it's either too loud or that they can't hear it.
It translates very differently through a mic, but obviously you've experienced it in person, what it sounds like. And then this is the heart. So this one was actually gifted to me by one of my friends. But the first bowl I ever got was a heart. It's a lot smaller than this one. And I think that was that part of the journey when I started, and I was also just opening into the heart. So when you said that my practices are like a gift, like that just also really warmed my heart up, because that's why I do this, right?
I don't want to speak before it ends, but I want to ask you, so what's the difference between the bowls? Like, is it, like you said, now the one is a hard bowl, and like, is it the shape? Is it how it's made?
Yeah,
like,
it's
because I can
beaten,
hear there's even a different
it's
sound,
beaten
obviously.
into the hertz.
Okay.
I don't remember the exact hertz for each sound. I just remember the letter. So D is your sacral, F is your heart, and then the next one I have is for your third eye.
Okay.
Some of them will say it is A, some of them will say it's B. So because it's so close to the crown chakra, so your third eye is over here. So these ones, kind of different articles will say this one's A and then this one's B, and then another article will say this one's B and this one's A. But I think it's just because they're so close to each other. And it's just that unity of oneness. So, third eye, all about intuition.
Okay.
Connects to sacral creativity, imagination, and then also connection to one's higher self. There's your divinity that will then take you to that crown chakra. And then heart is all about love, forgiveness, empathy, compassion, and most importantly, grief.
Wow.
We don't give ourselves enough time to, or we don't allow for grief.
But so is the practice of the sound therapy, is it about helping you to connect to that part of yourself then?
Yeah.
So the more obviously you practice this, the more it's not saying it's going to feel better.
Yeah.
I guess it depends, like, I'm not saying it won't either.
No.
But it's something people often want to measure things and be like, okay, so I'm struggling with this, so I'm going to do this, and then it's going to be
They'll just need
different.
they'll just need the one time, and then they can come, and it's gonna it's gonna make them feel better, and they're gonna sort it out. When I say that everybody's experience will be different, on that day everyone's experience will be different, and every yoga nidra and nada yoga will be a different experience as well, to bring out something. So I've had sessions where, apart from passing out or fluctuating in and out, I can come out of it and just start crying. And maybe something may have presented itself subconsciously that I have been suppressing and pushing to the side. I'm not going to face it, I'm not going to face it, I'm not going to face it. And it might have been in one of these energy centers. And usually what's a beautiful thing is taking just a little time to, after the practice, just be with yourself, notice where you're feeling it more in the body. Usually during the mini retreats, I'll try and I like to take the bowls over those exact places of the energy centers. So if I'm going around with the sacral bowl, I'm going to each person and going over their hips and like hitting into the bowl there, so that frequency can go just a little bit deeper, because it might bring out something more. Because it's a systematic guided meditation, there's usually a visualization in the system, in the steps. And the visualization will change depending on the theme. And whatever that theme is, if it's a bit more about heart, or it's a bit more about earth, or it's a bit more about the sky, then I'll play those bowls specifically. So we know our the chakras, lower 3, so your solar plexus, sacral root, earthbound. Heart is the bridge between the two, the lower earthbound, and then the higher, more universal spiritual bound, which is then throat and third eye, and then crown.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I can also sit here and go into like chakras, like
yeah. But so chakras are a big part of the, I want to say, the practice, or not necessarily.
In a way, yeah. If the teachers will speak about them often, so I'll speak about them in different ways. I'll be like, this week we're connecting to heart, and what does that mean for us? What the theme? What do we need to connect to? Is it forgiveness? Is it grief? Is it love? Compassion, empathy, and then I'll plan the class around that. So heart openings and those kinds of things. And then if it's the Yoga Nidra Nada, then the Yoga Nidra will be very heart focused.
Okay.
So that's just, for me, some teachers work like that as well, but they are part of the yoga philosophy. So I just spoke about the 8 limbs of yoga, which is sort of the principles, that like scientific method behind this sort of way of living, to get you to that state of contentment or bliss or enlightenment. But there's a whole bunch of other things where you have your chakras, and I mean, we know of the main 7, but there's many, many more. And even with the sound therapy, when it speaks about it, hits into nadas, which are energy centers, and that's very similar to yin yoga, which connects to the meridians. So we have hundreds of thousands of meridians all over the body, and nadis or nadas that hit all different parts of the body. And when we come back to that hatha of sun and moon, right, and you also have your left and your right side of your body. So left side of your body, right side of your brain is your moon, feminine, yin, passive, restorative, gentle side, or mother archetype. And then you have your right side of your body, left side of your brain, which is your sun, power, hot, active, energetic, father archetype. And then it's about finding that balance between the two. And then when they speak, it's that harmony, that meeting of homeostasis. So that balance of your breathing and your body and all these energy centers just coming alive. And that's why sometimes certain things can come out, and I've had it where I'll come out of a yoga nidra and I'm just crying, or I come out feeling super calm, like really relaxed. I saw one of my favorite music artists, they have a new song out, and the song was Me and Euphoria, and I love that word, so like you and then Phoria.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's kind of what Yoga Nidra Nada gets you to at the end, is that euphoria. Even if you come out crying, then it's that release, it's that physical release. And then at the end, you're feeling okay, blissful, calm.
I want to ask you a bit about that, and I know that we need to just also keep track of the time. So I know that you also have other things. But how do you manage that part of the yoga practice and being a yoga teacher in terms of people's emotions? And because I'm thinking, like, it's quite a lot to have to just sit with, which I guess that the principles of yoga really helps with that. Because I can just hear this sense of acceptance, and whatever is supposed to happen happens, and you just go with that. But I can also imagine that it's quite overwhelming for the teacher when, like, the student in your class is maybe having a big experience, or like, I'm wondering, how do you navigate that?
I'll admit, in the beginning it was quite difficult, but now I'm a little bit more in tune and better at assisting a person. If they're already struggling, I'll go to them and I ask, are you okay? They don't need to tell me what's going on. I'll say, what can I do to help? Sometimes if they are crying, there's that one method where as you exhale, you're just pressing on the arms. So I'll do that, help them kind of ground and calm down. I'll guide them through breathing techniques, which will bring them back. And then they're able to observe what's happening. I'll say, just lay down. You don't have to do anything more. Just lay down. If they need space, they can go out of the room. But yeah, as a yoga teacher and somebody who's also a little bit, I find I'm quite empathetic, so I pick up on energy quite easily. I'll even change my classes just because of the energy that I'm picking up. I absorb quite a lot, and then that, I was telling my friend, like, and she does exactly the same, and I think it's quite an important thing for yoga teachers is to have this, like, either one day or an hour or somewhere in, like, the week where you can kind of separate yourself and then be in, like, the cocoon of your own energy and then recognize what is yours.
Yeah.
And then go back to teaching. And then be able to calmly assist people when they need help and if they want that help, because some of them don't, and that's okay too.
Yeah. I guess as a psychologist we go for supervision and we and our own therapy and do yoga and a lot of other things, because you are sitting with quite a lot from people. But I can imagine being very attuned to people's energies, as you say, that sometimes it can also just be really heavy. And that a lot of self-care, knowing yourself, knowing what you need, what works for you.
Yes.
It's really coming back to yourself.
Absolutely.
After
and
each.
A lot of the things is like what we're teaching our students for the mat, off the mat, is kind of what we need to remind ourselves of as well. So, if you need that cocoon and you maybe need that, I don't know, Netflix binge, cool, do that. If you need to get out into nature, get out into nature. If you need to go on the mat, get on the mat. If you don't need to get on the mat, don't get on the mat. Finding, like you say, your self-care, just so that you can, I always think of like that like Energizer bunny. So I just need to fuel up my battery and then I can start again. And I've always said to as well, in classes, like you pour from an over pouring cup. So making sure that you do stay with that self-care. I saw a beautiful thing where it said self-love is saying I love you, self-care is you telling yourself prove it.
That's so powerful.
So when I saw that, I was like, actually I've got to prove to myself I actually love myself. And that's going to be through that self-care so that I can hold space better.
Sabrina, thanks so much for your time today. Thanks so much for sharing this. I feel like there's so much more than we can probably get to. and we might get to that at some point. But I just really appreciate your time. I think that for me, it's really, like, I've learned so much and I respect this whole practice so much more. I think that it's also so difficult in our lives today where, like, everything is just this, like, fast food kind of, just everything's fast track.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people treat yoga in the same way. I often treat yoga in the same way.
Yes.
So it's not something that I practice consistently, because I have this idea in my mind of it's just the physical. And I'm hoping that people have a better understanding of how it can also be a part of their practice. I've often said to a lot of my clients, sometimes they don't necessarily feel like therapy is a space that they want to utilize, like psychotherapy, and they want to put that on pause, and that's fine.
Yes.
Then just find whatever else you need, and maybe yoga, practice, meditation, sound therapy, sleep therapy, that might be the journeys that people also need to be on. So I'm hopeful that people would realize that this is actually an alternative or something that they can do.
They can utilize it.
They can utilize.
Bring it with. I mean, in terms of the physical, a lot of different types of activities will always say, go and do yoga because it complements it so well. And it does that because, yes, it does help with the physical, but it also brings you right into that space. And then it's just remembering that, yoga, if you're utilizing it as that practice, whether it's physical meditation or and you're missing it out for weeks, that's okay. It's remembering that this is a lifelong journey.
Yeah.
It's and the same with therapy. It's a lifelong journey, right? And you just got to meet yourself where you are each day.
Yeah.
It's the only day that you can. Well, I always like to say, the present moment is the only moment that's alive. So live in it. It's the only one you can control.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I forgot to, in the intro, actually mention where people can find you. So I'll just add it here and we'll put a link as well. If you want to know more about Sabrina or the services that she offers, she's got many, many retreats, which is amazing. She does online classes, in-person classes. So if any of this speaks to you, you can get a hold of her on Instagram. Her handle is at Asana Tribe. I'm not going to spell that. We'll put that a link for that. And then, as always, if anyone wants to know more about Psych Central, they can visit our website at www.psychcentral.co.za or our social media handle for TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube is Psych Central SA. Thanks so much, Sabrina.
Thank you for having me.
If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to follow or subscribe on your desired platform. I will be so grateful if you're willing to take the time to rate this podcast so that you can continue to learn more about various topics related to your mental health and well-being.